Hi everybody, this is Jennifer. Welcome to my channel. I'm here in front of what I hope is going to be my new filming spot. It doesn't have a whole lot of like glare issues, though the lighting might not be great right now because it's really overcast outside, but I had to make some time to talk about my Nonfiction November TBR, and the time is now. Okay, so Nonfiction November is run by Olive over at Book Olive. This is like the 7th year I think it's happening. It's really cool, and I've participated almost every year. Last year was not super successful, but I did read one nonfiction book. But I am hoping to make much better strides this year because, as you will see in a different video, this is my second best nonfiction reading year I've had since I joined Goodreads. And so I crunched those numbers and I found out, and you'll learn more about it later. I'm doing a separate video on that. So I have been reading nonfiction regularly all year long. So it should not be too hard for me to fit some in November, especially since I'm not actually planning on reading any fiction except some like stuff I've pre-ordered that's come in. All right, so the 4 prompts that Olive came up with are collection, style, industry, and treatment. And I was able to fit most of the books that I wanted into the prompts, and I got one specifically for one prompt, but it was one I already wanted to read anyway. I just didn't have it at the time, so I hadn't planned on reading it. But I made the decision to get the audiobook because I decided I wanted to read it in November, which is what happened. So for collection, I am going to be reading The Reveries of a Solitary Walker by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And this is a collection of 10 walks. Like each chapter is known as walk 1, walk 2, walk, so it's a collection of 10 walks, and he is giving his reveries either like on the walk or while he's having the walk. I'm not entirely sure, but I have become quite the solitary walker this past year and a half. So when I saw it, I'm like, I want to read it. So I'm going to be reading it. Okay, so for industry, I picked a book that is set in the movie industry, and it's All Right, The Oral History of Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused by Melissa Maerz. And this came out in November of 2020, and it recently went on sale on Kindle, so I snapped it up. Yeah, Dazed and Confused is one of my favorite. Like, I absolutely love that movie, and I'm actually a big fan of Richard Linklater in general. I'm not a completist, but at some point I'm hoping to be. And Dazed and Confused was like a really good movie. It's not my favorite by him, but it's close. And I have recently watched it, and I'm interested to hear all the stories that come from that. The next prompt, style, this is one I tried. I am bringing back from last year, and I tried to read it after the one I read about Breakfast at Tiffany's last year, and I could not, there's like, I don't know, there's just something about it that I could not get into. So I'm hoping to try again this year because the subject matter really interests me, and I really want to read it. So it's Cool Town: How Athens, Georgia launched the alternative music and changed American culture. So the reason why I picked style on this, one, it's got the B-52s on the cover, and they are extremely stylish. And it's about like the evolution of a new style of music. So I thought that counted. And I love, like, the B-52s are awesome. And I love REM. I'm an absolute fangirl for REM, so I'm very interested in reading that. So for treatment, which is the last of 4 prompts, I picked up on audio From Here to Eternity by Doughty. And this is about the treatment of death and the dying by different cultures in the world. I recently, like 4 or 5 months ago, I read Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, which is her memoir about her first few years in a crematory, working in a crematory. And yeah, I got that on audio and I really liked it. And so on my walks, which I mentioned before, I like to have an audiobook. I like to have an audiobook with me. And this one, I think, is going to be very good company on my walks. So I do have some other options, and this one's becoming an annual tradition now, but I've had this on like 3 or 4, like, and it's probably going to come back again next year. I hate that it's happening, but I'm not going to get rid of the book because I really still want to read it. It's American Jezebel by LaPlante. And I think this would go under treatment because it's about Anne Hutchinson, who was a settler in America during the colonial times before the American Revolution, and her treatment by the Massachusetts Bay Colony, like, religious leaders who kicked her out. After that, I have The Unpunished Vice by Edmund White, and it's a life of reading, so it's books about reading, which is a pastime I can identify with. And the last book on my TBR, or my possibilities list for Nonfiction November, is Things Fall Apart, Heard Advice for Difficult Times by Pema Chödrön. This is my first Pema Chödrön book, and I hope it will not be my last. I've been reading, like, a lot of nonfiction that I've been reading this year has been sort of the contemplative type, like essays about solitude, essays about like nature and all that. And another thing I've been reading a lot about is mindfulness. So I've picked up like several books by Zen monks and like Catholic monks and all kinds of different things. So in keeping with my regular bookish patterns of this year, I wanted to have at least one of that type of book on my TBR. So that is the one for this month, Things Fall Apart by Pema Chödrön. So that is all 8 of the books on my TBR. Now, the likelihood that all of these are going to be read is slim. But what you gonna do? So that is mostly my TBR. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the big ol' chunker nonfiction monkey on my back. It has been on my TBR since May, and I've only gotten to 97 pages. It's The Reformation, A History by Dermot McCulloch. I have also read Christianity, The First 3,000 Years by him, and I thought that was really worth reading. So I want to continue this, but it probably will not be finished until December. But since it's nonfiction, and I just wanted to mention it here. So yeah, that is all I have for Nonfiction November. I really hope that it goes better than last year's Nonfiction November with the one nonfiction I read. But if this year is anything to go by, I think I'll be pretty successful at it. Let me know if you're taking part. I'd really like to hear what you're reading. Thank you so much for stopping by. See ya.